Hey guys, you just heard a part of the Godzilla theme song, and the reason why you heard that was because today I'm going to be reviewing the very first Godzilla film for you today. This is the very first film that ever came out in the franchise. This is the original Japanese release, not the American one, which was called King of the Monsters, or Godzilla King of the Monsters. So this is 1954, and this is also the Criterion Collection release of the film. This also comes with King of the Monsters. If you did want to see the U.S. release, I believe Raymond Burr was filmed in additional scenes for that version, and obviously they made it more American audience based for that version, so to make it make it more Americanized and things like that. But yes, this is the very first Godzilla, and it even comes with a here. I can even show you this quick if I can get it out. The set's pretty cool. You get a little booklet that tells you, almost everything you need to know about the release. It's right there. And when you open it up, I thought this was pretty cool. This is why I wanted to show you this. So there's the two discs. Look at that. When you open it up, Godzilla comes up like that. Isn't that cool? I thought that was a pretty neat feature there. So I'll put that to the side. So let's talk about Godzilla. So in the very first Godzilla film, basically there is a series of hydrogen bombs being tested, and people are starting to. There's this huge flash of light when one of these bombs goes off, and it unleashes this giant monster that was sleeping in the ocean this entire time, and it awakens him and he starts attacking the nearest city, which is Tokyo, Japan, or just Japan. It's since they really don't get specific, I don't think, on which town or city it was. I don't think. And so he's attacking all these cities and towns, and they have to try to find a way to kill it off. And since the hydrogen bomb awakened it, they're worried that because this such a deadly weapon woke it up, how can we get it back to sleep? How can we kill it off? And so throughout the story, there's looking at ways of killing off the giant monster since it does awaken every once in a while from the ocean. It'll go back in, it'll come back out, and they're looking at all the resources they have. And I won't get into too much detail for those who do want to track this down and watch it. But there is a guy who has a weapon that could ultimately kill the beast, but he's keeping it very secret. There's a person that knows a little bit about it, but is also kind of under the radar about it, not telling a lot of people about it either. And so throughout the course of the film, the weapon occasionally gets brought up, and so it eventually gets to the point where the government officials themselves try to track down this person who has this rare weapon to ultimately kill Godzilla. So this came out, like I said, in 1954, and there's a few little special effects every once in a while where it's like, okay, that's a little dated. Obviously, I can see that's from the 50s, and they didn't have CGI back then, so it makes sense why it's playing out like this, and where in today's world it probably would have played out like that. And but more than anything else, I think the Godzilla story is and I think the original creator would probably tell you this too, that it's about people's fear of bombs. It's about people's fear of these huge sounds off in the distance, wondering what it is. They're scared of it. At the same time, they don't know what it is. They don't want to know what it is. And but it's they're scared of it. They don't know what it is, and they're very afraid of it. And so Godzilla, in a way, is kind of a giant monster that represents that fear of bombs. And so hopefully, with this reboot coming out soon in May of 2014. Hopefully it'll be able to maintain that theme that this original film had too. This how this monster and the bomb are kind of one and the same, and people are afraid of both, and they're both afraid of both things for similar reasons and purposes. So for the positives and negatives of this original Godzilla, guys, it is a very entertaining film. If you've ever seen like the original King Kong, you go into it knowing that it's obviously going to be dated due to just how old it is. Um, but it's a classic. It's one of the first kaiju films, not the very first, I don't think, but one of the first. And it's just very entertaining. It's very interesting to see how people made films back then. I do know stories of the guy who was in the Godzilla suit could only be in it for so long because it was just so hot, and so they had to fan him down, put water on him, and give him tons of breaks while working on the suit, just because it is so incredibly hot to be in that suit. Um, Yeah, it's the some of the birth of the kaiju genre. Like I said, I'm not saying it's the very first because I think there was other monster films before this one, other strange beast films, if you want to call it that. But it's definitely the film I think that definitely got people interested in it. Probably the first American release, or the first film brought from Japan over to America that ultimately got people more interested in this subgenre, and ultimately more films were made here because of that success of bringing Godzilla to the U.S. Um, there's some pretty amazing Godzilla monster scenes in here. Definitely, like I said, once again, it's just very interesting to see how people made films back then, and yeah, even on the manual, I think it shows. Yeah, it shows like Godzilla attacking the city and things like that. And yeah, it's a very unique experience just because it's one of the first of its kind, and it's very interesting to see kind of what it looked like in the very first carnation of its existence. So it's a lot of fun to see that play out. And like I said, the monster scenes in here are a lot of fun to watch. There's very good writing in this film, specifically with the professors talking and these people who are trying to figure out how to kill off Godzilla and things like that. Just I was very impressed with the writing in this, and I actually watched the subtitled version so I could watch it in the original Japanese dialogue and follow it with subtitles so I knew what they were talking about and things like that. And yeah, just I think it was a very well written film, and I think obviously there were some later Godzilla films that didn't keep that quality, but yeah, for a very first time out for Godzilla, I think the writing here was very good. And like I was explaining earlier, I like how the film brings up the point that kind of the monster and the hydrogen bomb are one and the same. People are afraid of them for similar reasons. They're both, Godzilla's kind of the monster being version of the hydrogen bomb in a way. And yeah, I just really like how the film kind of makes those similarities throughout the runtime. It was just very interesting, I thought. Great musical score and great sound effects. You can definitely tell these people who are making the film went through a lot of time to get the right SFX sounds, to get the right sound effects they needed to get, the sound of metal crushing and buildings crushing and cars being destroyed and, people's homes being destroyed. And, things where Godzilla swipes at a metal beam or a metal pole of some kind. They had to make sure they got the right sound for that. And yeah, just a really great musical score. I even played a little bit of it here at the beginning of the video. Just really good music in this film. For the negatives of the original Godzilla, I do think there were a little bit too many human characters, and therefore there's not a lot of character development. I know that they're trying to make the point that the Godzilla's damages were a widespread thing, that this affected a lot of people who were living in these places that a Godzilla attacked. But in the end, though, I mean, you never really get a chance to really meet these characters, know these characters, because there's just so many of them they got to get through in between all these monster scenes. Since the Godzilla does take up a good portion of the screen time towards the end of the film, um, yeah, to me, it just felt like we really didn't get to know anybody, just because there's just so many characters they want to cover, and we have to cover this part of the country and this part of the state. We have to cover people like this. We got to cover the government officials. We got to cover the military. We got to cover this. We got to cover this. And it's just like after a while, I just really wanted to know some of these characters because there were a lot of pretty significant characters who ultimately were able to kill off Godzilla, and we really don't get to know them too well because the film spends so much time with all these different series of organizations of people, and we ultimately don't get to know them too well because it tries to cover so many of them. And to be expected, there were some dated special effects. There's some scenes in particular that really come off as dated. But that's kind of an obvious thing to go into with a film like this, since it is made in 1954, and they didn't really have a lot of technology back then to do the stuff they can do today. But there were some scenes every once in a while. It's like I think even back then it would have come off as fake. Um, and there were some occasional times too where I thought the film got a little overly sciency. I got a little bit sleepy eyed because there's some scenes where just like, okay, I don't need to know that much. Um, it was cool that they went into the science for me. That's cool. But after a while, it's like, okay, just show me Godzilla again. I really want to see more Godzilla at this point. And it did. The film did do that later on. Just after a while, it's like, okay, get over with the science. I don't need any more science at this point. So overall, guys, I give the original Godzilla, the 1954 version, an 8.5 out of 10. Very good film. 8.5, it didn't come out the right way. So 8.5 out of 10, very good. Um, Yeah, if you love Godzilla, if you want to see what his original carnation looked like, if you want to see how people made films back then, and like I said, it does come with King of the Monsters if you did want to see the American release of this and see all the Raymond Burr scenes added in. So check this out. I know it's a little expensive. I got this for about 30 bucks. I have no idea how much the Blu-ray cost of this. But yeah, very good film. If you want to see what Godzilla looked like in his original carnation, it is very much worth checking out.